Welcome to There's Nothing Artificial. I'm your host, Rich Hyman. Thank you for joining me on this journey where we examine cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, as well as machine learning and their intersection. Today, I'm joined by Marvin Wheeler, the Chief Innovation Officer at SilverSky.
Thanks, Rich. It's great to be here. I know we talk often about this, so it'll be fun to have this conversation today.
It sure will be. Yeah, thanks for joining me. So why don't you begin by sharing a little bit about your background, maybe going as far back as Terramark, but it's at your discretion.
Yeah. Usually you don't let me go have that free of a leash when I'm discussing anything. So anyway, we back at our company before Terramark, when Jamie Dos Santos and I worked together there. I won't go into the whole history there, but we started in Miami. We built out a company that was data centers, cloud hosting, security, defense. We ended up all over the world with our data centers and our systems and also in defense. And we got involved in a DARPA project there, which you're very familiar with, Rich, because you were involved in it. And it had to do more with using analytics and behavioral analytics and such, AI, ML, but more for warfighter purposes. So we formed this company, Cybrix, that was based on the theory of kind of changing those analytics, reusing them, repurposing them more for a cyber use case. After we worked as independently as Cybrix, built out the platform that we built using the AI and ML that you're basically the godfather of. Then we merged in with SilverSky back in April of 2022 because we found that the preponderance of users, of customers, wanted not just the analytic coverage that we had, but they wanted us to be able to remediate the problems and solve the problems, not just tell them they had a problem. So we ended up merging in with SilverSky. And so now we have the opportunity to deliver the analytics platform plus the team that does the analysis and remediation.
In the first episode, I discussed why threat detection is hard, and I sort of examined the question on two different layers. One was kind of like an abstract notional level, which is threat detection is hard because threats are hard to define, and so what organizations will typically do, because it's difficult to define exactly what a threat is, it's kind of nebulous, is that they will wait for a threat to happen in their organization or to somebody else, and then they will figure out like how to integrate that specification into their I guess security paradigm. And so I remember when we capitalized Cybrix in 2016, we sort of like latched on to this idea of rate of learning. But I would love to get your observations, if you had any, on this like notion of rate of learning.
Yeah. And Rich, as you know, you and I go back and forth on this constantly. And I think that the one little tidbit that I would add to what you said is that, as you know, when we were doing this in a research program like DARPA, we could take in customer data. We could go do all this investigation with the analytics and, as you say, the different learning techniques. And then a few weeks later, bring the customer in and walk through it with them and show them all the things we had. But what was, in my opinion, the bow or the wrapper on the present, you and the data science team have such a heavy focus on how do we determine these advanced learning capabilities and how do we determine how to identify things that maybe haven't happened before. The next challenge was, how do we get that into a usable platform that just a regular security operation could use? And I think that was the secondary challenge is, this has to be pretty real time and as real time as possible. And the information, while it could be a lot of different sources being merged together, how do you display that in a very easy to consume, usable way operationally. So I think that it's worked well for us that we have a bunch of you and a bunch of other smart guys figuring out the really detailed problem. And then you got some old operational person like me saying, okay, that's great, but how do we present this in a way that the level 1, level 2 SOC analysts can actually use it?
Yeah, salient point. So I have written about the difficulties of operationalizing research in the past. And I have often quoted Shreyas Ramesh. I don't know if you remember Shreyas, but he was on the network defense program. And, he had sort of this sneer, which was a false positive rate of an algorithm equaled the amount of time it took to create a PowerPoint presentation. You noted that, sometimes that we had biweekly or maybe monthly meetings with the customers at DARPA, and there would be readouts by the data science team. And that was Shreyas's observation. And so, I think it does highlight an aspect of what I think you're talking about, which is like, it can't just be machine learning in like a narrow academic sense. It has to fit within SOC operations, for example, which has its own, its own cadence and its own rhythm. And so if you have to look at the output of an algorithm, and sometimes you have to look at it for 3 weeks to find something novel, that doesn't exactly fit into, what a SOC operator is willing to invest their time to.
Like Gartner and Forrester and the other analyst firms, they're beginning to coin a phrase saying that customers are looking for outcome-based solutions. So you see them where a lot of people say, hey, we could find this, we could find that. And what a lot of the customers are saying in their feedback back is, yeah, that's great, but what did you do with it to solve my problem? It's not, it's great that you said, hey, you've got this very unusual situation going on in your environment, but what did you do about it? What was the outcome of that? And so on. So I think that, this has been what I believe is probably one of our best, our best messages is that not only do we have a brilliant team of folks figuring out all these very novel ways to detect, but at the same time, we're also especially with the merger with SilverSky, we have an operational team and we get a lot of feedback and into, how effective was that case that we created to creating an outcome. I know that that your team has often said the term that when you don't have the feedback, it's like going over a waterfall. We find a solution, we create a case, and it's over the waterfall and kind of gone. Now with the SilverSky SOC team, we can close that loop even better and get feedback from them that helps inform you guys which things seem to be the most actionable and which ones didn't.
Yeah. Another really good point. Yeah. I've often been critical of some machine learning projects that try to, find an aspect, I guess, of a problem that's like good for machine learning. But it's kind of like artificial, I guess, in the sense that it's kind of like torn away from what the problem looks like in the real world. And I think what you're talking about is you have to, especially from an applied perspective, if you're doing research from an applied perspective, you have to find what that problem looks like in the wild, and having that feedback from customers from all the way from detection through remediation is pretty critical. All right. Well, I think I've taken enough of your time, and I really thank you for joining me, and I hope that you'll return for another episode, another round of this, and thank you.
Well, thank you, Rich. This has been great.